The book gives us this glimpse into New York at a certain place in time, and yet it also takes us to Hollywood. What was the Hollywood of your childhood like?
Well, I describe my father as having sort of a meteoric rise from editing men's magazines, I mean action adventure magazines, to writing screenplays and novels and plays. And all of a sudden in the mid to late 60s, Hollywood came calling. So, I mean, it's an old story. Writers and actors from the New York area would often be enticed to go out to Hollywood. And Woody Allen, I mean, that's a big theme in Annie Hall is trying to get used to Hollywood and all that orange juice and sunlight. He just felt uncomfortable. It's just too healthy out there, you know. These neurotic Jews going out to this Technicolor, fantasy land is just too threatening, But we were taken along with him when he would go out and to work on TV shows or screenplays. And we got to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I write about an all-expense paid trip by CBS for our entire family to stay at a Hollywood bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel. They thought they got the better deal by just paying for us to be there than giving my dad money. After we were done, they were scratching their heads and said, how could kids spend that much money on room service? And my mother would discovered Rodeo Drive, which didn't help. She'd come back every day with bags like a great game hunter, only from Hermes and Cartier, So they were, my dad jokes that CBS has banned us from life for going out to all expenses paid junkets. So we were brought out there. It never seemed real. I describe it as my dad's playground. He loves that expression because that's how he felt it was. They're paying me to sit by the pool and act like a player and write these screenplays, and then I go back to the city, to the real world. And so we were kind of swept up in it and brought along.
And at one point, you got to have dinner at Groucho's house.
Yeah.
The Groucho.
The Groucho, not the other Groucho. Groucho Marx, when he was 85, 1975, lived in the Hollywood Hills, and he was still hosting dinner parties, and he had this controversial girlfriend, manager Erin Fleming, 40 years his junior, that had him going out doing speaking engagements at university, and yet he still had a lot of strength. And one day we got a call while we were out there, would you like to have dinner at Groucho's house? My dad asked us, my brothers. I said, sure, why not? But Erin said, we said, does he like kids? And she said, oh yeah, Groucho loves kids. So we went there, and Groucho met us at the door. I think he had a beret on. He had a tropical shirt and boxer shorts and these Apollo astronaut silver slippers that NASA had given him. It's an odd collection, and he came out and he saw that we were a little nervous. And he said, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Friedman, and you have 3 lovely daughters. Yeah, my brothers and I had long hair, and that's how he greeted us. And I shook his hand, and it was the most surreal night of my life. He performed for us about 8 or 9 of his classic Marx Brothers songs. That was after dinner. We sat at the great table with him, and there were some celebrities there. Elliot Gould was there. Dennis Wilson, the drummer from the Beach Boys, came in sort of late. It was like you were sitting at the table of a beloved Rebbe, who was a genius of comedy. I mentioned Dennis Wilson came in late, this long-haired hippie guy. Groucho probably didn't know who the heck he was. And Dennis Wilson came over to him, sat below him, and said, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Marx. And Groucho said, it ought to be. And then Dennis Wilson just broke out in a big smile. There was just one quip after another. I'll say one more. I don't want to give away too many of them. We lived in Great Neck in the 1960s into the 1970s. Groucho lived in Great Neck in the 1920s before he went to Hollywood. In fact, he lost all his money in the Depression, then went out to Hollywood. My brother Josh asked Groucho, do you remember that theater, the Playhouse? It's a movie theater. They had an old organ in the basement, and they did vaudeville. And Groucho said, I have an old organ. It's like, so that's kind of how the dinner went.
Well, and out of the spoiler alert, I'm not sure if you want to give it away, but he also signed a book to your dad.
Yeah, at the end of the dinner, when the guests had begun to leave, instead of us leaving, Groucho and Aaron invited us back to give us a tour of their house, which is like going down memory lane. And so it was a beautiful home, lots of pictures of Groucho and his brothers meeting presidents, heads of state, heads of corporations. His whole life, from when they were Minnie's boys, when they performed as kids, to the Marx Brothers. You know, it's the whole history of the 20th century modern culture was there on his walls with him in it. And then we went to his bedroom, and they literally tucked him in. Aaron tucked him in bed, put his bathrobe on, he went in bed. But before that, he exchanged books with my father. He gave him his memoir, Groucho and Me, I think. And my dad gave him one of my dad's books. And when we walked out, my dad opened up the book, and he read the inscription, and it said, "To Bruce, nothing in this book will harm you," which I thought was kind of funny. I was thinking of putting that as my inscription. Nothing in this book will harm you.
I'm going to say it puts a lot of pressure on you in the next few minutes.
I'll think of something.
So at the end of the day, when you go home and you've got this book sitting on your bookshelf or on your nightstand or wherever it is that you keep your supply of your own books, what has been the most rewarding part of getting these stories down on paper inside between these two covers?
The most rewarding part was communicating to my father in a way that he would most appreciate it, the written word, how I truly felt about living with him, how meaningful that period was at a time where I was uncertain, literally didn't know where I was going to sleep. And he just brought me in, no questions asked, although keep the noise down. But still, he brought me in, and he's very permissive, almost, I guess you could say indulgent, very much about self-esteem, about saying positive things. He's always just been a bigger-than-life, fun person, and it shows in his writing. So to tell him while he's alive, he's 84, and his mind is as sharp as a tack, and he's still writing. How I truly felt to get these stories down, I think it was very gratifying for me, but he's told me many times how proud he is of me, that it took courage to not only just write these stories, but to finish them and get them published. Now he's actually trying to hawk it to some of his friends in the movie industry. He's actually trying to be my publicist. So who knows, you might even see something beyond that, which would be fun.